Some names in history, they just echo with this sound of legend, but they're also wrapped up in a ton of misunderstanding. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of those names, Zhou Yu. And I want you to forget everything you think you know from the novels and the dramas. We are about to meet the real hero, a strategist, a leader, and a man whose sheer brilliance literally shaped an entire era.
Think about this. Almost 1,000 years after he was gone, the famous poet Su Shi wrote this line. It just perfectly captures this mythic image of Zhou Yu, right? This romantic, dashing hero, right at the absolute peak of his power. This isn't just some dusty old line from a poem. It's like the first bold brushstroke of a legend that has captured people for centuries.
Every hero's journey has a beginning. And for Zhou Yu, it didn't start on some grand battlefield. No, it began in his incredible youth, where a single, fateful friendship would light the fuse of his destiny.
So who was this guy as a kid? Well, from a young age, Zhou Yu was just bursting with potential. He was born into a pretty powerful family, sure, but he was also a master musician and a skilled warrior, which is a super rare combination. He was kind of like this seed of pure genius, planted in the best soil, just waiting for that perfect moment to sprout into something absolutely incredible.
And that moment, it came when he met Sun Ce. Look, this wasn't just two guys becoming friends. This was Zhou Yu's call to adventure. This was the one event that pulled him away from a quiet life of scholarship and threw him right into the chaos and ambition of building a nation, side by side with the man who would become his closest brother in arms.
To really get their bond, you have to understand this concept of Yi, or Yi. It's this idea of righteousness, of a brotherhood that goes so much deeper than just friendship. They were like two massive rivers coming together to become this single, unstoppable force, carving out a brand new kingdom in the south. But here's the thing about new kingdoms. They're fragile, and pretty soon, their young state would face its first massive test, a threat so huge, it would force Zhou Yu to step out from his friend's shadow and truly become the leader he was always meant to be.
I want you to picture a storm gathering on the horizon. Now imagine that storm is made of soldiers. That's what was coming for them. A veteran army of over 200,000 men, led by the most powerful warlord in the land, Cao Cao. And they were marching south with only one thing on their mind: total conquest.
And this is what Zhou Yu and his allies had to defend, everything they'd built. Just 50,000 men. The odds weren't just bad, they were borderline impossible. I mean, do the math. That's a terrifying 4-to-1 disadvantage. It was a test that would shake their new nation to its very core.
So this was the moment of truth. This massive winter storm was about to break right on top of them, and a lot of the top advisors were screaming, "Surrender! It's the only logical choice." But for Zhou Yu, the real struggle, his internal battle, it wasn't about logic, it was about loyalty.
And this is just classic Zhou Yu. While everyone else saw this overwhelming force, he saw weakness. He was the calm voice of reason in the middle of a hurricane, all driven by this idea of zong or zong, this unshakable loyalty to his lord and to the kingdom they had built together. There was no way he was going to let it fall.
And just like that, the stage was set for one of the most legendary battles in all of human history. A single moment in time where the fate of China would be decided, and Zhou Yu's name would be forged forever in fire.
This was it. This was Zhou Yu's ultimate ordeal. The weight of his entire nation was sitting squarely on his shoulders. Could he possibly come up with a plan to beat not just way more soldiers, but also the crushing psychological pressure of knowing that one single mistake meant the end of everything?
His answer was this absolutely brilliant, daring plan, a total masterpiece of deception and timing. Every single step was a massive gamble. Zhou Yu wasn't just planning a battle, he was basically conducting a symphony of chaos, betting everything on psychology, the weather, and pure, raw courage.
And then the moment comes. Can you just picture the scene? It's the middle of the night, and these grain ships are racing across the dark, churning waters of the Yangtze River. And when they slam into Cao Cao's chained-up fleet, boom, crimson flames just erupt, swallowing the Northern Navy whole and painting the night sky this hellish red. It was a victory against all possible odds.
That inferno at Red Cliffs absolutely cemented Zhou Yu's place in history. But, like all great heroes, his victory came with a price, and it left behind scars that would shape the final, tragic chapter of his life.
Yeah, even a hero forged in fire is still mortal. This wound, this physical scar, it was a constant,
painful reminder of what it costs to defend your home. It's such a powerful symbol of the sacrifices he made, not for his own glory, but for his people.
And this is the part that's just so tragic. He died when he was only 36 years old. It is unbelievable how much he did, how brightly his flame burned in such a short amount of time. His life really was a brilliant sprint, not a long marathon.
Okay, and this is where we have to get really clear and separate the man from the myth. The super popular novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which by the way was written centuries later and had a pretty clear bias for a rival kingdom, it painted him as this jealous, petty guy. But the actual historical records, they tell a completely different story. The real Zhou Yu was large-hearted, a brilliant strategist all on his own, and his legacy is so much bigger than some fictional rivalry. This quote from someone who actually lived back then, it says it all. The people around him, his peers, they didn't see him as petty or jealous. They saw a towering talent, a man whose skills were just on a whole other level. That's the kind of respect he commanded. So in the end, Zhou Yu's story kind of leaves us with this question, doesn't it? He may not have had a long life, but his impact was just immense. He was the guardian of his kingdom, a brilliant commander, and a loyal friend whose story reminds us that maybe true greatness isn't measured in years, but in the light you leave behind.